See. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the November meeting of the Queens Borough Board. My name is Sharon Lee. I have the honor and privilege of serving as your borough president. Today we have two items on the agenda, but before we begin, I've been asked to designate an alternate for one of the chairs. Is Ashley Reed in the room virtually?
Ms. Reed is not on just yet, Borough President, but we should still do the, we should still take a motion so that when she does come in, we can continue and she can be part of the discussion.
Okay, sounds good, so that we are not interrupted. So in accordance with section 13 of the Borough Board bylaws, the following vice chair has been designated by their respective chair to serve as an alternate to tonight's meeting, November 16, 2020. Second vice chair Ashley Reed, on behalf of chairperson Louise Walker of Community Board 4, I will accept a motion to approve this designation.
I move that we accept.
Thank you, Chair Bratton. I hear a second from Chair Weitzman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will welcome Ms. Reed upon her arrival. So as mentioned, we have two items on the agenda, both very important. The first one is something that will be coming up for a vote at our December month meeting. But tonight we have our guests from the Department of City Planning with us to talk us through some of the intricacies of this proposal. As we all know and are very well aware, city planning is the City of New York's primary land use agency. I don't have to tell you what city planning does. We all know what city planning does. But with us this evening is Joy Resor. Check me, is that right? Okay, Joy Resor, the borough planner with the Department of City Planning. She is joined by Alexis Wheeler, Deputy Director, as well as Hala Saleh, Borough Planner for Community District 14, Stephen Everett, South Queens Team Leader, and Manuela Povidaioko, Senior Planner. So Ms. Resor and her team will deliver an introduction on the zoning for Coastal Flood Resiliency zoning text amendments. Certainly with the experience of rebuilding after Superstorm Sandy, for which we marked the 8th anniversary just a few days ago, as well as the emergent best practices in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. This zoning text amendment is a continuing effort to refine and codify zoning resolutions to facilitate resiliency, especially along our coastline. Streamlining ongoing rebuilding still to be completed, and other projected climate-related flooding concerns. This is the third zoning text amendment following the earlier efforts of the flood text of 2013 and the recovery text of 2015. We did our introductions, and so without further ado, Ms. Resor, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the great introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight to talk about zoning for coastal flood resiliency. We also call it ZCFR, so I'll continue to refer to it by that name just because it's a little bit less wordy throughout the presentation. But like the borough president said, this is a proposed text amendment affecting all 5 boroughs and would update Article 6, Chapter 4 of the zoning resolution, where special regulations applying in flood hazard and waterfront areas can be found. I'm going to minimize this. Okay. Zoning for while there are many sources of flooding that pose issues in New York City, coastal storms present the most significant flood risk in terms of compromising human safety, property damage, and business disruption. With 520 miles of coastline, New York is very much a coastal city, with all the associated benefits and burdens. The city's floodplain is vast, and most times when we're analyzing the city's risk, we focus on the area that FEMA designates as the 1% annual chance floodplain, which has a 1% chance of flooding each year because this area is also known as the high-risk flood zone. However, in 2012, Hurricane Sandy made us aware of this risk by inundating beyond the 1% mark. During the storm, close to half of the lots located in what FEMA classifies as the 0.2 annual chance floodplain or moderate risk flood zone were inundated. In the two areas combined, almost 1 million New Yorkers live at risk of being flooded by a coastal storm. However, our risk doesn't stop there. With climate change, the floodplain will continue to expand, and this area is projected to become part of the city's high-risk flood zone by the 2050s. To tackle this issue and the wide range of challenges that come with flood risk adaptation, we must pursue a strategy that involves multiple lines of defense to include coastal defense strategies, ways to secure and protect our infrastructure inland, while also advancing emergency preparedness. But finally, we must ensure that we have the necessary tools that also help advance the resilience of our building stock. This work, ZCFR, builds upon our experience in passing 2 text amendments after the storm, which ensured that neighborhoods impacted by Sandy could recover. However, these rules are already beginning to expire as they were adopted on a temporary emergency basis. And so ZCFR will ensure that rules are made permanent as to continue to allow resiliency improvements to occur across the floodplain. In addition, this work builds upon years of research and outreach, which uncovered many issues that communities are still facing, even with the current zoning relief provided by the 2 post-Sandy text amendments. ZCFR will ultimately help those living and working in the floodplain to reduce damage from future coastal storms, be resilient in the long term by accounting for climate change, and potentially helping to save on flood insurance costs. But before we get into the zoning proposal, it's important to understand what regulations apply to the construction or retrofit of buildings in the floodplain today. Regulations governing new buildings and substantial modifications to existing structures in the floodplain start at the federal level, with FEMA administering the National Flood Insurance Program, setting up the flood insurance rate maps and establishing code standards for buildings in these areas in partnership with the American Society of Civil Engineers. On the local level, these rules are adopted by the New York City Building Code and are located within Appendix G. DCP uses requirements laid out in the zoning resolution to ensure that buildings can meet building code regulations without bumping into zoning constraints, and by setting up optional allowances that help buildings meet resiliency standards. While zoning regulations in the floodplain are optional, buildings must meet resiliency standards under the building code in Appendix G. The current building code requirements are based on the building's location within the flood zone and what the building code calls design flood elevation, or DFE. DFE is the height that floodwaters could be expected to rise, plus additional freeboard or additional elevation for protection. For residential buildings, all living spaces must be located at or above the DFE. Any spaces below must be wet flood-proofed, meaning water can flow in and out. Those wet flood-proofed spaces may only be used for parking, storage, and access, and these buildings may not have any subgrade areas. Non-residential or mixed-use buildings, like the one you can see on the right, can be designed with the same wet flood-proofing methods, but they also have the option to dry flood-proof and locate some uses below the DFE. Dry flood-proofing means making specific design and material requirements so that the space is watertight. This strategy allows uses to be located close to the sidewalk level, but can be expensive and especially challenging in locations with high water tables or high DFEs. These building code requirements became widely applicable soon after the storm and posed conflicts with the zoning resolution in 3 main key areas. Rules that regulate where certain uses shall be located, bulk regulations that govern the size and shape of the buildings, and finally, how resilient buildings interface with the public realm. In addition to conflicts between underlying zoning and existing building code, one of the main issues highlighted during our outreach process was the fact that many residents who had their homes retrofitted to meet building code regulations post-Sandy weren't able to have their home elevation account for sea level rise projections, or even to meet Sandy inundation height, which, as we know, was higher than the DFE in many parts of the city. Participants also claim that such additional elevation could have assisted them in reducing flood insurance costs, as well as to relocate living spaces, which are often located within basements above harm's way. So after a long process of studying the floodplain and engaging with many stakeholders on a wide range of issues, we were able to establish 4 overarching goals that help us move from Sandy recovery to a longer-term resiliency strategy. The floodplain, the first goal, the floodplain community wants to be able to prepare buildings for flooding, even if they're not located in what FEMA currently determines to be the highest risk flood zone. Goal number 2, we learned that people also want the option to raise their occupiable space a little higher than the current flood level that FEMA projects, because they have seen higher flood levels already and expect that risk to grow in the future. When people are undertaking big investments to reconstruct floors where they live, they only want to do that once. The third goal focuses on the feedback that we got from residents and business owners who said they want to be able to invest in resiliency incrementally, so it's more affordable over time. And they want options like moving their mechanical equipment to a higher elevation without necessarily triggering a requirement to raise or fully floodproof the structure. And finally, the fourth goal, we know that we need a way for the cities to be nimbler in responding to future events that might require rebuilding homes or other forms of recovery, including the pandemic that we are experiencing today. So now for each goal, we'll present a set of strategies that help achieve them and go over a selection of regulations that we're proposing. And at this point, I'll go ahead and pass it along to Manuela.
Thank you, Joy. So next slide, we'll start with goal number 1, which really speaks to the text applicability of the proposed regulations. It's important to note that these regulations are optional. As Joy was mentioning, they come from adopting the building code regulations that come from FEMA. And so the zoning resolutions is trying to add flexibility for really to facilitate buildings to meet or even exceed flood-resistant construction standards that are set by the federal government as well, and then enforced by our Department of Buildings. Next slide. So the ZCFR would be proposing to expand the applicability of the current text to a broader set of buildings that are also exposed to flooding in the event of coastal storms. In the next slide, we have a map that shows you this change. So we will be allowing any lot located within both the 1% and the 0.2% annual chance floodplain to have access to the proposed special rules that help enable resiliency at the building scale. The 0.2% floodplain serves as a proxy of the high-end projection of the future high-risk flood zone. So the 2050s high-end projection for the 1% annual chance floodplain, really allowing the city to advance resiliency in the long term, as it would allow those living in these areas to proactively undertake resilience improvements, even if they're not required by FEMA or the building code. Next slide. Regarding goal number 2, this section illustrates regulations that will be available only if the building fully complies with Appendix G of the New York City Building Code, and is split into 5 separate subcategories, which I'm going to go over. Next slide. So starting with building envelope, the set of rules would allow building owners to physically elevate habitable spaces and other building support features above expected flood elevations, by offering more flexibility with our bulk regulations. Bulk regulations are, height, yards, floor regulations, and so forth, really to ensure that buildings can be made resilient without putting homeowners in a hard position to potentially having to lose a portion between their buildings when trying to make the structure compliant with these regulations. So this will really allow the, folks to have the whole building and the building elevated in a safer manner. Next slide. Regarding ground floor regulations, this set of rules would help promote good long-term resilient design of buildings and how they meet the sidewalk level by encouraging internal access and active uses to be kept at the sidewalk level as much as possible, so our floodplain communities can continue to be vibrant and accessible. Next slide. So as a reminder, the set of regulations are really for buildings that would fully meet Appendix G to ensure the buildings meet the full resilience standards. But in addition to that, to ensure that resilient buildings contribute to their surroundings, we would also be mandating a set of streetscape requirements that are met so the ground floor level design of resilient buildings is improved. Next slide. So moving forward now to speak about situations where neighborhoods and buildings may be old and not fully comply with our current zoning regulations. This leaves residents in these areas in a really hard position in trying to undertake resilience improvements because they bump into several zoning impediments. Many buildings do not meet the current zoning regulations and need more flexibility with our bulk regulations so they can also be retrofitted. Next slide. So in addition to providing more flexibility to our bulk regulations to ensure all buildings can be made resilient, we do recognize that not all buildings in 100% of all situations will be helped by our as-of-right rules. Therefore, the proposal will continue to offer discretionary pathways in the form of BSA special permits to really ensure that all unique situations are enabled to meet the resiliency standards for construction in the floodplain. Next slide. So now moving forward with goal number 3, this set of provisions located within the 4 categories that you can see here on the slide are what we call partial resiliency strategies, as they assist buildings undertake incremental steps towards resiliency without requiring the structure or sites to meet the full set of rules in Appendix G of the building code. Next slide. So one of the key things we learned during outreach is that raising mechanical equipment is often the first step to make a building more resilient. And so the proposal would enable more options for the placement of mechanical equipment above the flood level, either on top of roofs, which is a common strategy for larger buildings, or in a separate structure, which is a common strategy for large sites, which you can see here in the picture, or even smaller buildings that cannot accommodate the additional loads of heavy equipment within the building itself. Next slide. Also, a big portion of our floodplain contains business that offer either neighborhood services or that are part of the large industrial economy of the city. Many of such business cannot really be completely elevated or drive flow proofed and may therefore need to prioritize what kind of spaces will be raised above harm's way. So such spaces can offer the necessary support immediately after a storm event occurs and reduce therefore the business disruption. Next slide. The proposal will also be enabling different types of flood protection measures to be implemented across all areas in the floodplain. This would ensure and include allowances for flood panels and landscape berms and their associated egress systems to be considered permitted obstruction on open areas. It would also allow spaces used for the storage of flood panels to be exempted from floor area to enable on-site storage. Next slide. And last, in many areas of the city, zoning does require waterfront sites to provide waterfront access. And even a wider range of sites at the water's edge, the grade of such waterfront yards or required visual corridors cannot be modified. So the proposal will continue to offer flexibility for grading to occur and facilitate other resiliency measures such as soft shore lines to be designed to account for sea level rise. So the last goal is goal number 4. This part of the presentation is a little bit different than what I presented so far because most of the rules that are here, they apply on a citywide level. Therefore, we're going to be going to all 59 community boards. So this is really because Sandy showed us how areas affected by the storm went beyond the floodplain, especially regarding issues with our energy grid. Just recently, you all probably follow Tropical Storm Isaias left many customers without energy. So being able to provide backup energy is crucial moving forward. So the proposal will be allowing power systems. This includes generators, solar energy systems, fuel cells, batteries, and other energy storage systems to be considered as permit obstruction on open areas across all zoning districts to really facilitate their installment. Next slide. In addition, we want to ensure that all areas of the city can easily provide ADA access, considering that more and more buildings will need to adapt to climate change and may opt to incorporate resiliency designs. Therefore, the proposal would also provide full consistency across the city for building access by classifying both ramps and lifts as permitted obstruction in all required open areas. Next slide. And another important issue to note is how disasters, especially those that require the evacuation of residents, impact vulnerable populations. Hurricane Sandy and other storms across the nation have exposed the difficulties facing nursing home residents in areas at high risk of flooding. Nursing homes are licensed to house populations that require continual medical care, but research shows that this dependency can be strained whether nursing homes shelter in place or evacuate prior to a coastal storm event. So while all nursing homes in hurricane evacuation zones in the city could be subject to mandatory evacuations during a declared emergency, the city believes it would be appropriate to limit the growth of nursing homes in high-risk areas to really lessen the health consequences and logistical challenges of evacuating the residents of these facilities. So the proposal would be prohibiting the development of new nursing homes and restrict the enlargement of existing facilities within the 1% annual chance floodplain and selected geographies likely to have limited vehicular access because of the storm event, such as the islands located off the mainland. Existing facilities would still be able to conduct enlargements though, so they can continue to do modest improvements, including those that help with resiliency measures. Last slide. So Sandy also showed us that a lengthy process to update zoning regulations can pose obstacles to the necessarily fast-paced disaster response. The proposal would then include rules that could be made available to facilitate the recovery process from future disasters, some of which would be implemented now to help address COVID-19 and its associated economic effects. One example is that it will be giving more time for non-conforming uses, such as a retail establishment in a residence district, to come back to business, as the underlying regulations in the zoning resolution typically require the non-conforming uses that are discontinued for more than 2 years to come back only as a conforming use. So considering the challenges we're facing right now with our economy, the ZCFR is proposing to allow extra 2 years, so a total of 4, for non-conforming uses to come back. So this just kind of summarizes the proposal and our intention with all the goals and all the different rules. We can definitely take questions from all of you. In the next slide, I just have a note on our next steps. So you probably know, but we referred the text out on October 19th, and we are going to all 59 community boards. So all the 59 community boards, borough presidents have 60 days to provide recommendations, and the deadline is December 28th. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Resor and Ms. Povedeko for that very comprehensive presentation. I want to welcome Vice Chair Reed of Board 4. Glad to see you. And I'm going to ask that the other chairs to kindly turn your cameras on as well, so that you are visible for the record if you are able. With that, any questions from the board? Chair Arcuri, please, Board 5. Could you unmute yourself, please, sir?
Okay.
There we go.
So recently there was additional facilities added to the Rockaways. And contrary to what this is saying to us, that we should be moving facilities away from the Rockaways or the floodplain that serve the people that are in need, I don't understand why it's happening. Okay. There should not, we should be decanting the Rockaways of facilities for elderly and supported people rather than adding them to the Rockaways. And I think Dolores would reinforce that.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. We understand, we've seen, the patterns of having new nursing homes placed sometimes in the floodplain. And really, what we're trying to propose here is that new facilities shouldn't be built in areas at really high risk of flooding moving forward, just so we don't add more populations into these areas.
But we just did. Recently, we just added more facilities in the Rockaways. Is that not correct, Dolores?
Well, I have a lot to say. So, Vinny, are you done and can I go, or you have something else?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so let me say, all of these high-risk flood zone amendments, we absolutely support. We don't feel that it is sufficient, but it is a very good start. However, we have a great concern. I think Vinny might have been referring to, while we're not adding nursing homes at this point, we've added senior housing. Senior housing is critical to our community. We have many, many seniors. However, I believe that the city should restrict those senior housing units to people who currently live in Rockaway. We should not be adding to the population because we do not have the resiliency measures in place to protect us. At this very moment, the city currently has planned 8,000 units of housing to come onto this peninsula, when 99% of the peninsula is in the 1% flood zone, annual flood zone. So all these measures we applaud and thank you, but we need a moratorium on housing until we are safe. We cannot continue to add thousands and thousands of families in a high-risk area. If anyone was here after Sandy, the horror that we experienced and a population that was so vulnerable that we suffered, many suffered for months and months just to find food and warmth and water and electricity. So continue with your plans for the high-risk flood zones. We applaud it, but stop the building in Rockaway. And the senior housing, any building that's done is for those that live here. Do not bring additional vulnerable individuals into this high-risk community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Orr, for those insights. And you're right to a large extent, especially the wake of Superstorm Sandy has been very, very long. I mean, to this day, not everyone is, there are still a number of folks, not many, just single digits, but to this day, 8 years later, there are still, the recovery is not fully made whole for some households. I see a hand from Chair Brayton of Board 10.
Thank you, Borough President. I agree with what Dolores said in terms of this is a welcome addition, the text amendment. I believe the Board 10 will be supporting it. I agree with Dolores's position in terms of adding populations of vulnerable people to any of the areas. And I believe an addition to the text should be a restriction on any new facilities, large-scale ones like senior housing should be restricted, as Dolores said, to people who are already residents so that you're not bringing in new population. But secondarily to that, in the other areas, there should be a restriction on any facilities that have overnight sleeping accommodations should be restricted from certainly the residential areas that would have to be evacuated in the event of any kind of an evacuation order. In Board 10, a large portion of the area that we have that's in the concomitant rezoning to this, evacuating anything like that would be a very difficult thing, even if it were a small facility. So we would like to see some type of a restriction on any type of facilities that are bringing in residential uses in a congregate setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Brayton. Chair Orr, did you have additional comments or insights?
Yes, based on what Betty just said, a vulnerable population is the homeless population. So we have a number of locations that are temporary in hotels. However, there is a permanent shelter that had to be evacuated because it was rampant with COVID. And we just found out that 3 blocks from the $60 million affordable housing project with 3,000 units, there's another permanent shelter going in. And I believe shelter populations, not temporary housing, but certainly shelter, full-time permanent shelters, in this area, that's another vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Orr. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Chair Deller of Board 2.
Yeah, as city planning knows, we just spent a tremendous amount of time looking at the waterfront in Long Island City, with the Your LIC project. And my question is, how do these regulations dovetail with the open space requirements? Can you comment on that? City planning.
So open space requirements, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is that, you're talking about, you mentioned soft shorelines. So, how does, we advocated a lot, and Hunters Point South is filled with soft shorelines. But when we went to look at the Your LIC project, there was a lot of controversy around these issues of resiliency on the waterfront. So my question really is, the advocacy around soft shorelines, does this help to emphasize the need for soft shorelines? Or, is there no difference? Are you just saying to a developer that if they build something that's, a 60-story apartment building in a 1% area, that they can then, just flood-proof the ground floor and all's well?
Thank you for the question. So we did take a lot of feedback that we got, especially throughout the years. I would say a lot of it came after Sandy, that people really, understood the risk that waterfront sites face. So we took that feedback from new designs that were coming in to city planning and projects that were being built. And one of the things that was highlighted to us was the fact that it's really hard to add, like from a design perspective, the architects, it has been really hard for them to advocate from developers that they should be building soft shorelines, because there are some regulations in our waterfront rules that would basically, require the development to offset that 40 feet of the waterfront public access inland, and the footprint of, design of the buildings, they would just need to configure that in a way in less space. So that's one of the items that we got as feedback, and therefore the proposal is basically going to allow a portion of that waterfront public access area that's mandated by our zoning resolution to be used for soft shorelines, with the idea that, you know, you could still create really interesting connection between the pedestrians that are walking along the waterfront that can go from the higher grounds, you know, areas closer to the buildings that are probably going to be closer to the design flow elevation, but also down closer to the water when you have the dry days and you have low tides. So that's the idea, is to give more flexibility for the designers to, you know, try to create this two-tiered approach and also implement soft shorelines without, you know, having to deal with a lot of the barriers that were identified.
But just to follow up, but it doesn't increase the required waterfront public access area for these areas to mandate more soft shoreline.
It doesn't increase the 40 feet. Yeah, it's a citywide text, so it's very hard for us to be able to design a rule that would allow, you know, any type of block configuration. Sometimes we have really shallow lots at the waterfront, like along Cross Bay Boulevard is one of them that I remember from doing the study after Sandy. And so it was hard to, you know, just make that call in terms of increasing the required, but it's really removing the hindrances that exist today for designers and developers really to, you know, be able to accommodate soft shorelines and other designs that may be more resilient and more interesting.
Thanks.
And I would also just like to flag that, you know, we're not the only regulatory body kind of at the table when it comes to our shorelines. As you also well know, Lisa, from the work that was done with the URLIC project, DEC, of course, is the jurisdictional body for regulating a lot of the shoreline treatments. And so oftentimes they are the decision makers when it comes to what our menu of options may be, that coupled with what the actual conditions of the water may be, like if there is a particular type of wave action that you need to be taking care with. So I just wanted to make sure that that was also being said.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Dr. James Savino has a question.
Dr. Servino, is it on behalf of Chair Kelty? I see Chair Kelty is here.
Yes, it's on behalf of me. I'm not asking any questions, Borough President. He will do for me, please.
Okay, Dr. Servino, I will ask that you see the chat when you have a chance, but go ahead.
Yes, I did. I was answering some of the chats and requesting in the past few minutes. So I agree with one of the colleagues from the Rockaways that the development that is taking place right now does not conform to a protective measure that can address climate change and sea level rise, especially what we're projecting. I mean, myself, I work at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute up at the MIT campus in Cape Cod, and the meetings that we're having as scientists show a much bleak picture here than what is sort of being portrayed. If you look at the Category 5 that's about to take place in Central America, we're talking about 15 to 25 foot storm surges. Yes, I know that we're in a different latitudinal location. However, we are, as scientists, predicting severe storm surges and consistent flooding that would challenge these protective measures in the resiliency plan. The main question that I have is, are the Tolman's Island treatment facilities and the Greenpoint treatment facilities being addressed in this resiliency plan? And how are we going to be dealing with an influx of water, and what types of stop check valves are in place at the treatment plant facilities to control excess sewage to be mixed within our city streets as a result of consistent flooding and storm surges? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I guess the clarification is that these are just zoning changes, so we are not really handling any particular lot. So I'm not sure how, I could really address your question on the treatment facilities. It's really a set of regulations to allow more options for property owners to incorporate resilience improvements. I would need to, get into the specifics if perhaps there's a plan for adding, resilience measures to those facilities and see if there are anything in our zoning, proposed zoning that could enable and facilitate those measures to be implemented. But
So Dr. Servino, are you suggesting that the proposal is insufficient?
I'm suggesting that it is insufficient. Correct. I think that if you're going to increase density and there are proposed developments in the next 20 years, that has to talk to the treatment facilities. So if we have a sewage treatment plant facility in X location that could withstand the capacity of 1,000, let's just use 1,000 people, not that that's the number. We need to upgrade the facilities to handle the sewage and as well as the pathogens associated with said sewage. That if we're going to be increasing the density, we need to increase the capacity of these treatment plant facilities that release sewage in heavy storms. So if we're having these major nor'easters and superstorms, the reality is that we are releasing sewage because they cannot handle it in a 2018 world. So if we're going to move towards the future, what are the plans in place to conform with development density and the sewage treatment plants doing to be able to handle that capacity? Because we will be swimming in sewage if we are looking at these conservative projections, which we think as scientists it's going to be much worse. However, if we're going to even look at the conservative projections, those sewage treatment plant facilities in our districts need to be seriously upgraded.
so yeah, I just really want to clarify that we're not proposing any changes in density at all. This is just a fix of the zoning resolution and what are the impediments that we have today in the book that could be really making it very difficult for property owners to incorporate resilience improvements. But this is in no means any zoning action that is adding density or changing any density patterns. It's a citywide text amendments. So we're just, really adding optional regulations to enabling resiliency. It's not changing any land use patterns. That's not the goal. It's really just fixing what we need to fix in order to enable buildings to incorporate sea level rise projections, to add power systems, to provide backup power, anything that anyone would do on a proactive basis. And I understand that, I completely, understand what you're saying, but the treatment facilities, I believe it's DP. So we would need to, talk with DP and see if they have plans to address that, but it's not what this action is doing. We're just changing the zoning resolution.
Thank you. And am I to understand that the concerns and reservations that Dr. Servino expressed, is that reflective of your concerns and reservations, Chair Kelty?
Yes, they are, Madam Borough President, because I understand what she's saying is that we're only just fixing a thing. But if we go in blind and don't anticipate that the sewer treatment plants and stuff like that are going to be affected by this, then this is a simple, let's make another compounded problem by not getting DEP on the same line as us. Right now, Flushing is already having a problem with the sewer treatment plants. When they built it, it was supposed to handle 100% of the problem. It's at full capacity and only handling 50% of the problem. And I think that's what my environmental chair is trying to warn us of. These are nice, and we understand that this is just to make help the residents, and we do. But as Dolores said, she's already been hit with 8,000 projects now already in a district. And where is that sewer stuff going to go? So I think we've got to get the EP right in line with city planning to make sure they've got their action going together at the same time.
If I may, Borough President,
Yes, Chair Curie and then Chair Brayton, please.
we survived the 14.5-foot surge in Sandy and a 25-foot wave crush. The plants were overwhelmed, yes, but they then came back. Yes, the plants need to be upgraded, but it's not a disaster happening or coming. The world is not ending. We probably have the best sewage treatment facilities in any major city in the world, and they do need upgrades, but we survived that 14.5-foot surge, and that was basically a 500-year storm, and we think we could continue.
Thank you, Chair Curie. Chair Brayton.
Thank you, Borough President. Probably that leads more to this comment. You know, the text amendment is a great start. It's fixing some things that needed to be fixed. It's a good start. Probably my question would be, in the rezonings that you have been doing that have been leading up to this, like you did in Hamilton Beach and Broad Channel, and now in Old Howard Beach and in Gerritsen Beach, there is the recognition that density has to be limited. We need to, as we move forward, what studies will be forthcoming in coming years to address the two needs that we have in the city? Number one, to develop housing, and number two, how do we reduce density in the areas that are flood prone? You know, how are we going to address those two issues in the future?
Thank you,
Betty.
Brayton. Please go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna offer an explanation on the land use spectrum, and Betty is really familiar with it. So the way we are approaching, how this project fits within the whole land use spectrum and our plan moving forward is really that on a citywide level, we're keeping density, we're not changing anything because it's a citywide scale, and we don't think it makes sense for us to develop those plans just, looking from afar in the citywide scale. But on the local level, we do want to continue to explore areas that may face extremely high risk of flooding, and the areas that we've been doing the rezonings to downzone are the areas that could be affected on a daily basis by sea level rise, and daily tidal flooding moving forward, will become more and more frequent. And in those areas, we'll continue to keep exploring. So we definitely welcome recommendations from all of you. But yeah, as part of the project, we are, just fixing the things we need to fix to really ensure long-term resilience on the properties that we have developed, that we have now, so people can be safe. Moving forward, we need to continue to look at the areas that may make sense to have more housing, to really advance some of our planning goals for affordable housing, and areas, what are the areas that we can continue to do that? And then on the other side of the spectrum, where are the areas that we should be restricting and trying to not add more populations?
Thank you. I see a hand with Chair Weitzman of Board 6.
Thank you, Borough President. I just wanted to state that this is a sobering conversation. And what my takeaway is that we're discussing the fact that land that was, habitable, buildable, is only buildable with these changes moving forward. And Chair Curie, I heard him talk about a 500-year storm. We know that kind of the trajectory is not that it's 500 years. And I'm wondering if there's an acknowledgement of just global climate change in all of this, and the messaging from your office and in how you're talking about it. I have not heard that said, and I'd like to hear it explicitly. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Yeah, I think we could have made that clear. So thank you so much. So we are approaching, climate change, and the way we're communicating with the public is that this project will be trying to advance long-term resiliency in two ways. So one of them is thinking about sea level rise projections, increasing the geography in which we expect to, be inundated by a storm, being the high risk flood zone in the future. So we currently, the rules, they only apply to what FEMA designates to be the high risk flood zone today. And we understand how shortcoming that is, and we need to really incentivize moving forward the properties that are beyond that high risk flood zone to also incorporate resilience improvements. So one way that we're doing that is by incorporating the current moderate risk flood zone, which is the future high risk flood zone, to allow those properties to incorporate resilience improvements. And then on a citywide scale, going even beyond with the power systems allowances. And the other side of incorporating sea level rise is more in terms of height. So we spoke with so many homeowners, and people were really expressing to us how they saw sand inundation high going above and expecting that line is just going to go above, with sea level rise, which is just keep increasing. So we consider also the worst case scenario of the 2050s projection, which touches on 2080s and 2100 projections, to allow the additional freeboard. So when you're elevating a house today, we want people to make that math and add those extra 3 feet of, the high-end projections that come from NPCC to make that project, survive today, but also the next decades moving forward. So yeah, those are the general, 2 ways that we are incorporating that.
Given some of the concerns that were raised by Board 7, and considering that we will take a vote on this at our next Borough Board meeting on December 14, are there ways that we could strengthen the proposal in a way that would satisfy the concerns that Board 7 has raised?
In regard to treatment facilities?
I mean, anything. I heard reservation. So, and this is scheduled for a vote in a month.
I'm not sure. Yeah, Alexis, do you know?
Well, sure. Well, President Lee, as Manuela has expressed, this is really more towards what new development is going to look like, and as well as retrofit for property owners that are in vulnerable areas. We definitely don't want this text amendment to be viewed as the only work that the city is doing with respect to resiliency in the city. And so there's the Mayor's Office of Resiliency that is kind of the umbrella for a lot of the different resiliency efforts that are going on across the city. But DEP, they also have their own capital priorities and resiliency experts in-house. And so while we don't have at the ready an explanation for their imminent capital plans and upgrades for what the area studies and analysis may be to ensure that our wastewater treatment plants are going to be upgraded to keep up with the growth of the city. I just want to make sure that this is not necessarily the text amendment that is appropriate to carry those types of concerns, because this is really more catering to what the as of right development may be for existing property owners. I think that if there are larger concerns being raised here, that's certainly something that we can be taking back to our colleagues at DEP, and we can see how a more coordinated citywide resiliency strategy can be expressed to this group. So that way there's a better understanding of how everything is intended.
Thank you for addressing that, Ms. Wheeler. I see Chair Arcuri and then Chair Orr.
I don't think we've really received an in-depth analysis from city planning on this proposal. And I think they should come back to us with a more in-depth report.
Loud and clear. Thank you, Chair Arcuri. Chair Orr?
I would ask under goal 4 of facilitating future recovery by reducing the vulnerable populations, that you expand the definition of vulnerable populations to additional seniors and permanent, not temporary, but permanent homeless shelters as vulnerable populations that certainly deserve our protection. And the way we protect them is to keep them out of flood areas.
Noted. Thank you, Chair Orr.
President Lee, if I could just respond also to Chair Arcuri. Just for your awareness, there are going to be presentations made to all of the community boards. And so you're getting kind of a briefer overview tonight of what this provision is. And then there are more locally targeted presentations that will be given to affected boards. And so you'll actually get a better sense of your own district, what the applicable flood plains are in that area, and something that's much more tailored to how your community is affected by this provision.
Alexis, could you put in the chat the link on City Planning's website where it has the applicability to each community board? I believe I read it on your website. There is a page that's got the applicability. If you could put that link in the chat, it would be helpful.
I can put it.
Thanks, Manuela.
I think we had a point from Chair Kelty, Board 7.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Alexis, did you say you're coming before the boards? Is that what you said?
Yes, we have a plan to be going to, I don't believe every board, but the boards that are affected by this provision.
Okay, of course. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The reason why I'm concerned is if I'm going to vote on this next 14th of December, that's when our board meeting is. If you were going to go before the board, then it would have to go into committee, and you're not giving me much time to put anything into committee before December. So I'm kind of like thrown off on your time frame versus what you want me to do at our next borough board is and make an opinion on something.
And we can certainly table it from the December meeting and push it to January.
Okay, and just to be clear on the other thing, I understood and I did hear what you said about the sewer treatment plants. I think I don't want you to change the text. I understand why the text was done. I think you should understand. I just want you to say that we're in contact with DEP, making them move along with us at the same time, because we are making changes. That's what I think I was looking at, not, and I think that's what Dr. Savina was just trying to warn you of. We can't be looking at one side of a picture without the rest of it. And we don't know what DEP is doing it since you came first. So we would like you to say, yes, we're talking to DEP and they do have something going online. That's what that was all about. Thank you.
If I may, I think that you don't understand how we work in Queens. Yes, we are individual community boards, but we work as a total borough. So yes, you'll be doing a presentation, I believe, at my board meeting on Wednesday, but my fellow board chairs and members in the county need to be aware of the whole thing. And we do need more information and more in-depth presentation for the entire borough. Thank you.
And so to the city planning team, you mentioned that you are planning to present at some of the respective community boards. If you will indulge us and plan to present at all of them, unless they say no, thank you. I would appreciate that. In particular, I know that board 3, for
Correct.
example,
Please, Board 3.
may not be on your list.
Okay. We
would
need to have a presentation, please. It's Renetta.
Yes, Chair English, thank you for that note. And so city planning, we would appreciate if you could plan to do that, again, unless a community board opts out of that presentation. Chair Orr, did you have another comment or question? I see your hand raised. Okay. Chair Kelty.
No, I should have lowered the hand. I apologize.
I should have lowered my hand too. I apologize.
Not necessary. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Just a quick.
Yes,
just a
James
quick
Savino had a just one clarification.
The clock is running on this. Joy,
Hi, yes.
it's running.
Yeah, so what Betty means is that Old Howard Beach, the proposed rezoning there is running alongside zoning for coastal flood resiliency. So the deadline for Community Board 10 to get us their recommendations is December 28th. So we've asked them to provide those at that point, and then the borough president clock would start. And you would have, I believe, 30 days to review that and make your recommendations.
Thank you.
I just had one clarification. This is Dr. James Servino. I just wanted to say that I meant that we are currently at overcapacity. I didn't mean future projections, future development. I should have been more clear that currently, as of now, with the current zoning and what is built as of right now, if we don't build one more home, we're thinking of treating our sewage with chlorine. We are already releasing a tremendous amount of sewage during normal storm events with the current homes and density we have now. I just wanted to make that clarification that they're looking to do
Dr.
chemical treatment.
We hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Deller.
Yeah, I just have one question. I went to the link that you provided on the city planning website. Did you say these are customized for the areas that you're going to do presentations? I don't see something by neighborhood.
So yeah, if you go to the link, so first, one of the resources that I pointed out is the proposal slides. We have a lot of content. It's if I would give the presentation to all of you, it would probably take an hour and a half. So over there, you can see every single detail. We made illustrations to make it very easy to understand the zoning changes that we are making and how that compares from the current text. So that's a overview of everything that we are proposing. And then the applicability maps that are in the tab right below those links. So you have the one-page summary, the project description, proposal slides, and annotated zoning text, so you can also read the text. Then we have applicability maps, and then those are by borough and then by community board.
Thank you.
No problem.
And Alexis mentioned this in the chat, but for the board 3 chair, I just want to make very clear that we will be going out to all of the boards to present this.
Thank you for that, Ms. Resor.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Ms. Resor, and I see Vice Chair Reed on behalf of Board 4.
Hi, thank you, Madam Borough President. I just want to know quickly, is there a timeline for when we can expect these presentations?
We will reach back out to your specific borough planners, and they'll coordinate meetings with you, but they should happen no later than December.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reed. Okay. Thank you again, Ms. Resor, and to your full team, Ms. Povadeko and Ms. Wheeler, and everyone else. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for answering all of our questions thus far. Good luck to you as you do the community board tour here in Queens. You are certainly welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but you should feel free to excuse yourselves. I know your time is valuable, but thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Back to our agenda. The next item is a briefing from the New York City Test and Trace Corps. Joining with us today is Harold Miller, the campaign director. I'm not sure if that's a typo.
Campaign director, yes.
Campaign director. Hi, Mr. Miller, welcome. And he is joined by Julie Kim, the Queens Borough Director of the Test and Trace Corps. Test and Trace Corps has come before the Borough Board before, earlier this year, for better or for worse. The pandemic is ongoing. We are familiar with the Test and Trace Corps, so we'll go right into it. As we know, the numbers are rising. The trajectory is troubling, not just in the world and not just in our country, but even here in the city and in Queens. And so we've invited the Test and Trace Corps to be here on a very, very timely matter. Mr. Miller and Ms. Kim will deliver a report and further inform us on the latest and breaking news with regard to the contact tracing program for the City of New York. Mr. Miller, Ms. Kim, welcome.
Thank you again, President Lee. Thank you to everyone on the call. I know many of you were on our call late last week. We presented to many of the community boards in Queens. The numbers are continuing to rise, unfortunately. We are still faced with the potential of hitting 3% positivity rates across the city within the next day or so, which may trigger the closing of the public school system. But we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're being aggressive in educating the public and continuing to work with our community partners in not only in Queens, but throughout the city to get tested, to follow the health guidelines that we have put out. Wash your hands, wear a mask, keep social distancing, stay home when you're sick, refrain from large gatherings. So we're going to continue to pound that message across the city. Right now, my team and I have hundreds of people out every day. We have scores of folks here just in Queens throughout the various zip codes that are continuing to do that education with community groups, on street corners, at houses of worship, anywhere where we can get an audience. We are continuing to talk about the need for get tested. We understand that vaccines are on their way. However, we're coming into a period of time where our numbers are going up, and we need to do everything we can to safeguard ourselves for the increase of COVID-19 as we see around the country. We do have the presentation slide that goes through a lot of stuff. Many folks have seen it already. I could quickly go through it, and then if there are questions along the way, I'll be more than happy to answer. Also have my colleague, Julie Kim, who is our Queens director, who recently started with us a few weeks ago, will be your direct contact for all things Queens related for Test and Trace. So.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
So the numbers that you see here are a bit dated from a few days ago, but the trends are the same. We're trending upward, unfortunately. As you see, we are looking, like I said, looking towards a 3% positivity rate very soon. And so we're sounding the alarm. We don't want to scare folks, but we want to keep it honest and real that we are faced with a potential wave in the city, and we just have to act aggressively now. Like I said, these numbers are from November 11th. They have changed slightly, but the trends are the same. Increase in positivity, cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are unfortunately on the increase. And so we just need to do everything we can to trend downward again. Also want to just point out that if you look at the governor's zones, a lot of Queens are in the yellow zone, unfortunately. And so what does that mean for many of us, or for those for orange, and I don't believe we have any orange currently, but Orange is houses of worship will remain open only at 33% capacity up to maximum 25 people, whichever is fewer. Gatherings, non-essential gatherings must be limited to no more than 10 people, both indoor and outdoor settings. Individuals who encourage, promotes, organize mass gatherings can face severe fines. And as you see, we have the sheriff's office out and about, stopping illegal gatherings every night of the week. Businesses, including gyms, fitness centers, personal care, are limited. We are got to make sure we do everything we can to protect the public. And so that's why we have taken these aggressive actions. When you're in the orange zone, bars and restaurants as well are limited for takeout and delivery services only, and outdoors maximum of 4 per table. And schools and public schools will remain closed until they're out of the orange zone. Yellow zone is houses of worship remain open at 50% maximum capacity. Non-essential gatherings are limited to 25 people for both in and outdoor. Individuals who encourage will also still face severe penalties. Businesses may remain open, but have to follow the requirements that were laid out in the executive orders. Indoor and outdoor dining is allowed, but there is a 4-person maximum per table, and schools, public and non-public, may remain open, but testing guidelines are adhered to. Like I said, these are numbers that are from a few days ago, but like I said, I want to just talk more in trends. And far as the numbers in the various zip codes, we do have positivity rates above 3% in several zip codes in Queens. So we are going to continue to increase our testing capacity. We're going to continue to do our outreach and take aggressive steps to make sure we could drive down the numbers as quickly as possible. The outreach efforts that we are leading in, we're working on with many partners, so many I'm not going to really mention for this call. We have been aggressive in distributing masks. We have distributed over 300,000 pairs of masks. We'll be close to 4,000 by the end of this week, just in Queens alone. And we have, on average, distributed nearly 1 million pieces of masks across the city. So we are very aggressive in making sure that people adhere to mask adherence, because we understand that is a way we keep everyone safe. And the CDC has recently talked about how wearing a mask also not only protects you from others, but you're protecting yourself. So we want to make sure that people are wearing their masks, especially as we're moving into more of a, more indoor settings. We want people to wear their masks indoors and out. So that we're going to be very aggressive in making sure that we continue to have a mass distribution efforts throughout the fall. Mentioned on the call last week, we opened up a point of care testing site in the Queens Library at Lefferts. We are continuing to identify other areas where we can up our testing capacity. In addition, making sure that we have what we call self-testing sites where we'll partner with organizations. I know we have partnered with some of the boards here in recent months to do self-testing at your offices, and we'll continue to identify other partners that we could do the self-testing sites as well. So the big thing I want to keep emphasizing is that we have holiday guidance. Holidays is a time where we all want to be with our family and loved ones and get together in large groups. And unfortunately, this is not the year to do it. We have to limit the amount of people that we are having over for the holidays. We have to keep parties just at the folks that you are in your social circle, your family, those who you live with. Those are the only ones you should really be spending holiday times with indoors. We are discouraging folks from traveling. It's, we're in a very critical point in this pandemic fight. And we know that folks are facing COVID fatigue. However, this is a time we have to really be on guard and be vigilant about what we do as a city. And so we're encouraging people to host virtual parties, continue to decorate and show it off on, Zoom and TikTok and whatever social media platform you enjoy. Outdoor caroling, if you keep at a safe social distance, that is great. We want to make sure that, you just limit the parties, limit the amount of people gather in one setting. That is critical for us. And again, we understand that testing is really our path to making sure that we are safe as a city. And so we are giving guidance that most of us should get tested at least once a month. Definitely if you're an essential worker or you're outside of the home a lot or come in contact with others quite frequently, getting tested at least once a month is the way to go. Myself, I got tested just yesterday at the St. Albans Martyrs Church, which is a few blocks from where I live. It took me a grand total of 15 minutes from the time I got online to the time I left. So it's very easy. They don't stick the thing way up your nose anymore. They swab it right at the lower part of your nostrils. So it's a much better experience than it was just a few months ago. And so if you haven't been tested recently, please make sure you do. It's critical that we ourselves be leaders and let folks know that we are getting tested and make sure that we spread that message to those that work under you. And obviously, we are still pushing what we call our core 4. Stay home when you're sick. Only leave for necessary medical care and errands. Keep your social distance 6 feet apart. Make sure you wear your face mask at all times when you're outside of your, tight social circle. Keep washing your hands as our parents has told us growing up. Make sure you wash it with soap and water. If you're not near soap and water, please use hand sanitizer whenever possible. And then obviously, like I said, get tested. And if you don't know where testing sites are, you can always go to nyc.gov/COVID tests or text COVID test to 85548. So I will stop sharing the screen here. I'll take any questions that folks may have at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I see we have a question from Chair English of Board 3, followed by Chair Arcuri of Board 5.
Hi, how are you doing? I guess my first question was, we had a pop-up site at Traverse Park and I experienced a new test where they didn't go up my nose. And I was wondering if that was as valid as the other type of tests, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's as accurate now. The technology has gotten much better over the last several months with the testing.
All right. And I wanted to know, when you do these pop-up sites, is there a way for us to see what the return rates are in regard to positive rates and so on and so forth?
Well, what we can share is the rates, by the zip code. By the testing side, I'm not sure if that's actually something we could do, but we have shared by zip code where positivity rates are currently.
And I guess my final thing is, because from one of my board members in East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and North Corona, we are one of the the big core areas of the issues in regards to COVID-19. And one of the concern was, how come there's no necessarily permanent sites for testing, except going to either Elmhurst Hospital or these particular pop-up sites? So that was a concern that we had.
Yeah, I think, ultimately we will continue to identify places where we can open up sites. We have, hundreds of sites across the city, and it has taken some time to build out that type of infrastructure, but we're going to continue to build this out. And Elmhurst is a place that we have, East Elmhurst particularly. Yeah, for example, it was at First Baptist Church a few months back. And so we'll always look for other opportunities to look for locations to do testing to make sure that we are, maximizing the population that's out there that needs testing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see Chair Arcuri of Board 5, followed by Chair Wilson of Board 9.
Yes, Madam President. The Constitution guarantees me my right to practice my religion, freedom of religion. It guarantees me the right to association. These draconian rules are ridiculous, unconstitutional. And if I have 15 people in my house for Thanksgiving and someone comes to the door to tell me I have to throw them out, they will be met by my shotgun.
Well, we don't want to resort to violence, but our goal is to make sure that the public is safe. And so, this is guidance to make sure that
you can't take my rights away from me. No matter what you say, I have the right to practice my religion, freedom of religion, and freedom of association.
Yeah, I hear you, and no one's want to take anyone's rights away from practicing their religion. But what we are going to continue to be aggressive about is making sure that there are no large gatherings, and particularly in like public spaces. The sheriff's office is not going to go to house to.
So what you're saying, you're going to discriminate against the Jewish religion because a minyan is 10 people, and they have more congregations. So you're practicing discrimination against religious groups.
I disagree with that. We're not discriminating.
Well, tell that to the rabbi.
We could go back and forth on it, but we're not discriminating against any religious groups. We have guidelines that goes across the board to make sure that the public is safe. We're in a public health crisis. People are really dying out here. And so we are taking aggressive steps to make sure that the public is safe. We know that people may not like it. That's fine, but we're in the business of making sure that we are not faced what we faced back in March and April, where we didn't have enough places to bury people. And so we have to take aggressive action to make sure that we're not facing that situation again.
I'm a little older than you. I've lived through a world war, and we've never had this kind of condition. We always had freedom of religion, freedom of association. Even though things were terrible during World War II and the rest of the years going before, these draconian positions that you're taking are unacceptable.
So I'm going to step in right here. And Chair Arcuri, I appreciate you verbalizing what sounds like your concerns, but also you are also vocalizing what we're hearing in many parts of Queens, and so I appreciate that. To your point about it being draconian, I think you would agree, though, that this is pretty unprecedented. This pandemic is pretty unprecedented. And in terms of freedom of religion, which the genesis of which actually was here in Queens, as we know. And you're muted, sir. The genesis of which was here in Queens with the remonstrance. We hold it very dear.
But Madam President, I lived through the polio situation in the 50s. I lived through World War II, where we were waiting for bombs to fall on us.
Right.
And we still existed. We still had our religious freedom. We had our ability to associate. So it's nothing new. It's just a terrible approach to it. I'm sorry.
And I hear you. And God willing that this will be able to get past this pandemic. Unfortunately, nearly 250,000 Americans have not. It's just fact. Nearly 250,000 Americans we have lost in the last 8 months. And so I would argue that while I cherish my liberties and my First Amendment rights as well, and the ability to exercise them, that that I would actually expect government to take action, inaction by government in the face of such an unprecedented global virus pandemic, about which we know less than a year's worth of intel. You have been through much more than myself, clearly. However, this is a challenge that I think
President, my cousin still serves aboard the Arizona beneath the waters of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
We lost millions of people during World War II.
Yes.
We lived through it. Never were our religions been taken away from us. Never were we treated the way we are being treated now. So that's my argument, okay? I've lived through it. We had 16 million people served in World War II. We lost millions, but never were our religious freedoms or the right to associate ever taken away from us. That's why we fought World War II, because Adolf Hitler took those freedoms away from everyone. He killed millions of Jews because he wanted to take their freedoms away from them. And now we're doing the same damn thing.
Well, I think that in order to preserve the ability to even exercise those freedoms, we take some drastic actions now. That being said, I know that we see some hands raised. Chair Wilson of Board 9, followed by Chair Deller of Board 2, followed by Chair Weitzman of Board 6.
Thank you, Madam Borough President. Mr. Miller, I have a question for you. Within my district, we have one of the highest, Richmond Hill. I guess it was at 6 point something when I just saw on your chart. Within my district, I have still a lot of very active civic associations and meetings happening, in-person meetings, which I do attend. And I actually get tested every week. I go out to one of your testing facilities. Is that being overly cautious? I mean, is that a little too much?
No, I think it's really at your personal comfort and availability. Especially if you're in public quite a bit and you're interacting with folks that's not in your social circle, the family or whoever you live with. I don't think there's a such thing as too much. I was just talking about minimums with the once a month for those who may not take testing as seriously or see the value in it because at least with once a month, you kind of have a sense over the course of a period of time, with how close a contact you've been with someone who potentially may or may not have COVID-19. So I think once a week is totally fine. I'm not a medical expert, not a doctor, but I do listen to them every morning on a call. And, our mantra is, get tested as often as you can. And so, I will never discourage that.
Yeah, because I go to at least three meetings a week with other groups. And also, some of your testing sites have the rapid testing included, but I don't think in any of that paperwork, it shows that the rapid testing has a more of a false rating than the 24-hour result. And how come all testing sites don't have both? Some of them don't have.
It's the machines. We don't have enough machines to process the rapid testing as available as the, as regular testing, capacity. So we're continuing to scour and, bring in more rapid testing capabilities, but it just the scarcity of resources on that level.
But the rapid testing does have a 40% of false positive? Is this true?
No, I don't believe that's true. No, that's the first I'm hearing a number so high. What the rapid testing, what we do with the rapid test, you'll get the initial result, and then they'll send a second swab to the labs for regular testing. So just to double check and make sure its accuracy. So yeah, because on the spot we'll have a higher percentage of a false positive. I don't think it's at 40%. I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to speculate, but there is a chance for a higher false positive compared to those who get regular tested.
Thank you.
And did I don't know if I missed that. So is there a differential level of accuracy between the rapid testing and the regular testing?
In some cases, there could be. So that's why we take the extra precaution in making sure that there is a additional sample that goes out with the regular testing just to double check. But we're very confident about the numbers that, about the accuracy of the exams we give.
What is the accuracy rate?
It's in the 90s. I don't have the specific number. I don't know the specific number offhand. I wasn't prepared with that.
91, 98, that's a big difference.
No, it's in the high 90s. It's in the high 90s.
Okay, that's for both the rapid and the regular.
Yeah, I'll double check. Like I said, I don't want to speculate numbers like that on a call like this. So
you're being recorded, Mr. Miller.
No, I know. So that's why I said I don't want to speculate. So I will get back to the myself or Julie will get back to the board with the accurate range of accuracy for the rapid tests.
Both the rapid and the regular, please.
And the regular, yes.
Yeah, and I think it should be given out with the info packet that people get when they get tested of the percentages.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. It gives more confidence by the public in more information. That's a great idea. Chair Deller.
Hi, I was really sobered by the meeting last week, and I took to heart that the city wouldn't put out such severe warnings about the contagion without having scientific basis for doing that. But so with that, I'm having a very quiet Thanksgiving. But what I'd like to ask you is about, we were talking with a local not-for-profit in our community about co-hosting a mobile pop-up site. So how would we do that if we wanted to move forward with that plan?
Mobile pop-up site for testing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we can work with you to figure out our availability to get mobile sites. They're usually not just for one day. We usually want to have it in a location for about a week at a time.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking with Sunnyside Community Services, and they do a lot of home health aid education and people in and out of the building during the day. It's not far from the subway. We were talking about possibly 2 weeks or whatever would work for you. But it's not, it would be, we think it would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, we'll look into seeing what we have available to move, in the coming days and weeks. We only have so many of the mobile sites available throughout the city. And so we'll work, Julie and I will work to figure out, how soon we can move it towards Sunnyside.
Yeah, we were thinking, sort of mid-December if that was possible.
And
Okay.
I can say something really quick. Lisa, if you can reach out to me directly, we do have ability to do microsites. So even if we can't have like a full-on mobile site in CB2, we can have a microsite where we've been partnering with, actually we've partnered with businesses as well, but it could be a really quick turnaround. It's really flexible. It is a self-test. So we have trained people to come out and folks can do a test on their own and they will get a result within 48 hours. I actually just did it and I got my results within a day. So those are much more flexible and I can work with you to try to do that and while we're waiting for a mobile site.
Okay, I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
I think Chair Weitzman of Board 6, followed by Chair Torniali of Board 1.
Thank you, Borough President Lee. Thank you for the presentation. Our board meeting was actually at the same time as the Test and Trace presentation last week, but we've been working really closely with Test and Trace. We've set up a number of the micro self-test sites, and it's been really amazing for us, so thank you. What we've noticed is that as this, as the messaging is go out and get tested, and as a lot of the resources I've been told have been moved out to Staten Island and other kind of micro community, or not micro communities, legitimate full-fledged communities, we see in our district, and I'm assuming perhaps throughout the borough, really long lines at the non-city run sites, like at the urgent care sites. So I'm wondering if there's any reason why you wouldn't set up an ongoing microsite near known long line, urgent care sites to offer people 2 places to get their test done. I know at the urgent care sites, they're also free of charge. We've had, like I said, really good experience with the Test and Trace self-test sites. And I just think that, our good weather is waning and we really need to use all of these daylight hours to get as many people tested as possible. So I'd like to hear your strategy as to how you can do that. Thank you.
That's a great idea, Chair Weitzman.
That's a good question, and I like the idea actually. Something we are working with the testing team within T2 to figure out how we are utilizing our self-testing sites. How do we, encourage folks to go to, sites that might not be as utilized. So there's a kind of a, big picture strategy we need to figure out across the board to make sure that folks are not, online for long periods of time. It was actually something that was discussed on a call I was on this morning. We are, trying to figure out, how to, utilize our self-testing sites a little bit more effectively. Something I'll bring up, back to the team on, bringing it closer to where these long lines are at city MDs and the other urgent care centers, and to see what's the possibilities there. And, we'll continue to brainstorm other ideas. I have no problem stealing ideas and sharing it for the good.
I just had one more follow-up, if you don't mind, Borough President. And it might be a little bit of a risk, but I just want to take a moment to respond to Chair Arcuri that my district is very diverse. And we have a number of observant Jewish communities who understand the need to take these restrictions seriously to save a life as a primary goal. My father is a Holocaust survivor. I'm the child of a Holocaust survivor. He's 80 years old, and he understands that being persecuted for your religion is not being asked to put a mask on your face or being kept in small groups. So consider that in your messaging, please. And thank you for that, Borough President Lee.
Thank you, Chair Weitzman. Chair Tornioli of Board 1.
Okay, following up on my colleague at Board 2, we have testing sites closer to the subway and their city MD, which are now 4 to 5 blocks long, because a couple 11105 and 11103 were pretty high up there. And I want to know the parameters of hosting self-testing sites, because I think we're in dire need. So if anybody could tell me how I would go about doing that.
We are going to continue to expand our testing capacity. It's you know, a priority for this city to do, and not only in Queens, but everywhere. But particularly in Queens, we're seeing unfortunately rapid growth in cases, and so it will be, you know, our highest priority to make sure that we have additional testing sites throughout the borough, you know, over the next coming weeks. And, you know, so we're just working different ways and, you know, looking to see, particularly expanding our self-testing capacity as our strategy to, you know, as a way to get more people tested quickly.
Okay, I guess, how can I keep on top of that is what I'm asking.
Well,
specifically for Community Board 1.
Yeah, no, we'll work with you, Julie. We'll work with you to figure out how we can do that, along with Board 2 and the other boards I've mentioned that want expanded testing capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Tornioli. Chair Deller, did you have another comment or question? I see your hand still raised.
No, sorry.
All good?
I'll put it down. Thank you.
Okay. How about yourself, Chair Wilson? I see your hand still raised. Okay. I have actually a few questions. So test and trace. So on the tracing element of what you do, an unenviable job. You know, it's a race against time, right? Can you give us a sense of, like, from the point of potential exposure to informing the individuals who might have been exposed? What is the range of that time? So for example, let's say we were not on Zoom tonight. Let's say we were meeting in the boardroom, and tomorrow I tested positive. At what point would Chair Tornioli be alerted that I tested positive? Like, what is that range of time?
Oh, that great question. And when you carry out this exercise, it should be that day of when you find out you're positive for COVID. A contact tracer should be in conversation with you to find out who you have been in close contact with over the last you know, several days, you know, roughly 5 days. And we quickly will start to reach out to those who you've been in close contact with. And what they consider close contact is someone you've been in the same space for more than 10 minutes and not wearing a mask. So say that was the case in the boardroom, we want to make sure we have reached out to everyone in that room that day to get tested and to start to self-isolate. And so it could be within 1 day of the conversation that we have with the person who is positive with COVID. It could be up to 2 to 3 days, depending on response times with that person, getting their contact information from the folks that they were with to the time we may be able to actually reach out to someone. So it is a race against time. Our tracers work very aggressively to make sure we contact people that day so we can trace the virus. I mean, that's the goal. It's not so much tracing people, it's tracing the virus and making sure we isolate as many people as possible so the virus doesn't continue to spread.
But what is the range of time? And I ask this, and this is not to put you on the spot. I've heard of, right, anecdotally and also through friends, family, where the lag time of the point of exposure to when they got a call from Test and Trace could be as long as 10 days. or some variation thereof. And so my question is kind of twofold. One, what is the range of time that Test and Trace Corps is pushing toward and the average of, but also what's contributing to that lag time? Because 10 days can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's really should not be a circumstance where someone should hear from our tracers in 10 days. It should be within a day.
A day of the positive test
Yes.
result, or,
Yes.
or a day of Test and Trace Corps being informed of a positive
Well,
test?
we should have been informed roughly at the same time as the patient.
Okay.
So yeah, we will be informed that this person X has COVID. You're receiving a phone call from our tracers. If they're not answering the phone call, you receive a knock on our door a day and a half later from our community engagement specialist. So our program is built to be extremely aggressive in reaching out to folks when we find out that they are positive with COVID-19, for the simple reason we don't want them to continue to expose others with the virus. And so, and not so much them, but those who they've been in contact with the days prior to. And so make sure that they are isolated, make sure that they are, tested for COVID-19. It will be like we'll shoot ourselves in the foot if we're getting back to people in 10 days. And something like that, we need to know right away if someone has not have been heard back within a day's time to make sure our tracers are contacting them, do have the right contact information, are knocking on the right door, because anything less than a day's turnaround from the time they are notified
A little while longer.
will be unacceptable.
So I'm hearing it's a average of about 24 hours.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing. Okay. Okay. Is there a day, as of today, so November 16, is there a danger that the city is running low or running out of testing?
No, we have more than enough capacity to do 80,000 a day.
80,000?
Yeah.
And how many are we testing a day right now? What is our clip?
I don't know the current numbers. We were averaging in the 50,000 range. Weekends might be a little bit more. But we have more than enough capacity to test folks.
Okay.
We're not in danger.
We are not in danger. That's good to hear. Because that was a big impediment back in March and April.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The average, are there any other, I have a couple other questions, but I don't want to monopolize. Are there any other questions or comments from the chairs? Okay, I'll look for hands. Going back to the time, very cognizant of time. I think the point of from the point of testing to the point of the results being delivered for the H&H facilities or test locations, pop-up and otherwise, what is the average turnaround time of the result? Because I've heard it very widely. I heard from, I remember whether it was you, Mr. Miller, or Ms. Kim, you said within 24 hours you got the results. Others I'm hearing, 36, 72 hours. So, but for H&H run or city run testing sites, and whatever labs that you contract with or we contract with, what is the average or the range turnaround time of the results right now?
They're currently at average 24 to 48 hours, which at one point used to be, 2 to 3 days. And so we are aggressively trying to bring down the turnaround time.
Okay.
So we've been averaging around 24 to 48 hours.
And is that for both the rapid and the not regular, non-rapid?
Well, I'm talking about the regular. Rapid is, is within that hour. You get your result back.
Okay. I see a hand from Chair English of Board 3.
Hi, this is Renetta English. I look forward to seeing Test and Trace at our November meeting that's coming up. And whatever I have to do in regards to wearing a mask, living through March and April, seeing family and friends in coffins was not, I don't want to see that again. So whatever we have to do over here in Queens Community Board number 3 to get the word out to protect yourself, I will do.
Thank you.
And I was looking at your presentation earlier, and I know the information changes in real time, right? So even 9 days later is like a lifetime right now.
It
when
is,
we're battling
yeah.
a pandemic. But in Queens, and you're right, currently we do not have any orange zones, but we did at some point. We actually had some red zones, and we were
Yes.
successful. And this was just in the last, I think, month, where we were successful in bringing that back down. But that was not, one lone person. It was a collective effort, bringing those numbers down. But right now, we're still seeing this troubling trend going up. Test and Trace Corps, what do you see as the top 3 impediments that are getting in the way of us being able to bring that back down the way we were successfully able to do here in Queens a few weeks ago? Like, why is it still insisting on going up? What are the 3 impediments?
I guess if you ask different people within Test and Trace, you get different answers. So I'll just kind of give you my,
The Mr. Miller, Ms. Kim answer.
Yeah, I'll give you my, my theory, theory just based on, and it's not like wildly out of the air, but, from conversations with the health experts within health and hospitals and Department of Health, what you hear consistently is that as people start to go outside less, gatherings that normally might have occurred on parks and beaches and, other places where folks are, out and about together that's outdoor are now happening indoors. More, house parties and other gatherings and larger, affairs of, folks getting together. And so that only exacerbates, with the holidays. And so that's why we have the holiday guidance. And so that's why we're very concerned about Thanksgiving and the other holidays coming up for that reason. I think the second thing, kind of just overall, and I think we're all faced with this, is just overall fatigue. And so we're just like, we're tired of wearing our masks. We're tired of, not seeing our loved ones. We're tired of the fact that we can't travel. And I think people, just in general are looking, ways to just rationalize the fact that we're under a very tough circumstance and will go revert to behavior that is, non-beneficial for our effort right now. So, folks want to travel, folks want to, go and visit friends that they normally don't visit. So you see some of that occurring more with a fatigue factor, setting in. And I think third, we are still educating the public about the importance of getting tested regularly. I know for a long time, people thought that testing wasn't regularly available back in March, April, May, and the city has made huge efforts to make it available. And right now, it's just making sure that the public understands, the general public understands, it's totally okay to go get a test. You could be totally healthy, non-symptoms, no issues, and still get tested. Because a lot of the folks who are carrying the COVID-19 are asymptomatic right now. So they're not showing any signs of illness, but they're carrying it. And so that's really a huge factor in this conversation, is that we're not necessarily speaking to those who are not feeling well. We're particularly talking to those who are feeling great and feeling healthy. They need to get tested. They need to make sure that they get tested regularly. And those are the ones that are hardest to convince because they feel great, especially if you're young. You tend to feel you're invincible. And so that's the challenge we're faced with. That's the challenge I face every day leading our outreach efforts is, convincing the 22-year-old that she or he need to get tested to protect their grandparents. And it's tough because it's like they don't feel that even if they catch it, that, it doesn't really affect them, but it's not so much about them, it's about those who they're around that we need to protect.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? If there are no other questions or comments, Mr. Miller and Ms. Kim, if you have any final or closing thoughts or information to share with us.
I don't know, Julie, if you have anything to add.
Don't feel compelled to. We're good.
I guess the only thing I would add is if anyone's interested in getting masks, access to masks to distribute, and also our Core 4 pamphlets, we do have a distribution site. We'd love for everyone to, join the effort and making sure that people are getting these things, especially before the holidays. And feel free to reach out to me to schedule a presentation, or if you'd like to secure a microsite, we can try to make that happen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
And I'll just end, Borough President. One, thank you. Thank you and your team. You've been very supportive in making sure that we had a space at Borough Hall to do the distribution, to make sure that, organizations, community groups, community boards are able to get, masks and palm cards. So just want to just thank you and your entire staff for working with us, over this period of time that has been difficult for all of us. And thank all of the chairs and that are on the call for your work and for your efforts to help educate your constituencies, because it's not easy, and we are faced with something that many of us have not faced before, and we are doing everything we can to keep New Yorkers safe. And so I just want to just thank you for your questions and your input, and things that weren't answered, we'll get back to you as quickly as possible with those answers, and greatly appreciate the opportunity tonight. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of my team, you're welcome. They're the ones who help coordinate stuff. And but thank you, Mr. Miller and Ms. Kim, thanking the board. But the best way to thank the board, I think, would be to implement the great ideas from some of the chairs, especially from Chair Wilson and Chair Weitzman. So thank you in advance for putting those into fruition. I will say that one of the bigger lessons from this pandemic is that it's not just about what we do, but when we do it. It's all about time. And so I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'd like to close by making it very clear that, in my humble opinion, doing the Core 4 and taking this virus seriously, it is one of the most patriotic things that we can be doing, to honor the sacrifices made by the frontline workers, the small business owners who have shuttered, by the unfettered level of this pandemic. And so I will close with that. It is one of the most patriotic things that we can do. It is a sacrifice to be making tough choices, like Chair Deller mentioned, of a much more modest holiday season, but it is the least we can do given the hell that we saw not too long ago. With that, we will conclude this meeting. The next meeting of the Queens Borough Board will be Monday, December 14 at 5:30, very likely on Zoom. Please be well.